be all right.
Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, you probably recognize or you will recognize the voice when you hear it. But she's been on the show before, breaking down injuries and recoveries and things like that. So I figured, why not bring her back on to kind of give everyone the kind of the road to where she got to now. And without any further ado, it's Dr. Erin Wilson. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. This definitely I wish the weather would actually, kind of make its way to being some kind of normalcy, but that's never going to happen in the state of Tennessee. So
Nah, it's the same in Georgia. We got a little break today in the weather. We got up to 80, but then it was raining pollen, so pollen count of like 4,000. So if I'm a little raspy, that's because my sinuses are inflamed. I've had a sinus headache for the past 3 days. So
I just take sinus medicine year round. I don't even take a break anymore. but before we get started, of course, talking to Dr. Erin Wilson, like I start any of my shows for the month of March, of course, when we're recognizing and honoring Black women, I'm going to start off the show with, of course, a history fact that involves a Black woman.
okay.
I'm going to talk about Miss Joyce Nichols. Now, Joyce Nichols was born, of course, Joyce Clayton, June 28, 1940, in Roxborough, North Carolina. Of course, she got married at 16, kind of on the urging of her parents.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, last name got changed, of course, to Nichols at that point. And she went to beauty school. But, of course, she later attended Carolina College, which is known now as North Carolina Central. Of course, she made it halfway through her degree in psychology before she kind of ran out of financial aid or money, couldn't go anymore. So, kind of a bad stop at that point, a kind of unexpected or, bad way to end. But, of course, in 1965, she received a scholarship to study as a licensed practical nurse. Let's see, she graduated in 1966 after receiving that scholarship and started working at Duke Hospital, where she learned about the physician assistance class. Now, this program had been made up of men, so there was, a reluctance to enroll her in the program. But she was encouraged to apply by Dr. Eugene Stead, who is actually the creator of the PA program there at Duke Hospital. So, of course, she was finally accepted. Of course, she had to, she fought to be given the same stipend as the men in the program. Of course, at that day and age, of course, they paid men more than women, which, never should have ever happened to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
That's another story for another day. She worked, of course, in the cardiac unit at Duke Hospital while finishing her training because she had to support her family. And, a crazy story is her house was actually burned down during her
Wow.
or it caught on fire, I should say. And the school actually raised money for her to, kind of, house her family, things like that, which was awesome. She would eventually graduate from the program in 1970, becoming the first Black woman and the first woman overall to graduate from the PA program. So,
all right.
She would, of course, start a rural satellite health clinic with the help and funds of Dr. Estes Jr. Can't say his first name, but Dr. Estes Jr. We're going to leave it at that. Of course, she kind of worked to provide preventative health to individuals who didn't have easy access to medicine in the past, and she did a lot of this while raising money for healthcare and being involved in the community. And she also did a lot of that after her retirement. And unfortunately, she did pass in her home in Durham, North Carolina, on July 29, 2012. Today's Black history fact and something you didn't know about Black women. Joyce Nichols.
I didn't know
Definitely
that.
did a lot of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give it to her. She basically said, "Hey, I'm going to enter this program. I'm going to get the
Hmm.
same pay, and then I'm going to take this and I'm going to bring it back
But I
to
mean, not
all
only
the
that, she was able to do that and then service an underserviced area on top of that. So I think that's the
right,
most special part about it.
right. So she basically went there and she brought it back to where people
Hmm.
knew and where she was from, which is
Hmm.
highly commendable and is a great thing to do. And a lot of
Hmm.
us probably should do more of that too. But hey,
Hmm.
it is what it is. And some people say it is what it is, but to me, nah, it really ain't what it ain't. You kind of want to bring that
And
down.
certain things you have to be kind of born with. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And everybody's born with um, different fundamentals and kind of different things that are important to them. And a lot of that is learned based on your environment where you grow up at. So obviously she had a good background, a good foundation, for coming back to where she's from and servicing underserviced people, was important to her. Because I mean, even the smartest people in the world with 5 million degrees don't have that type of empathy for where they come from.
that's true. You are correct. Speaking of where you come from, we're gonna get to you. All right, and now is this true? You grew up in Miami, Florida?
I was born in South Florida. So I was actually born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So about 15 minutes north of what everybody knows as Miami. Um, Anybody from South Florida, we're pretty much spent some of our time in all three of the counties, the Tri-County area. So you got Palm Beach, Broward County, which is where Fort Lauderdale is located, and Dade County, Miami-Dade County. So, yeah, that's where I'm from, born and raised.
All right. So I gotta ask, how was it growing up there? I mean, you see all the. To me, I'm thinking of the '80s, the '90s,
You think
the
of
Two Live
Scarface?
Crews, the Trick Daddy, and all those different things. That's where my mind is going when it comes to like Miami. That's the first kind of things I think of is
Yeah.
Uncle Luke, and Trick Daddy. That's like the two
Well,
things I
Uncle
think of.
Luke and the Two Live Crew, that was a more like my sister's era. I'm the baby of three girls. Um, my sisters were more in the kind of Two Live Crew, um, you know, Jimmy Johnson and Butch Davis Hurricanes. That was their kind of era. When I was in high school, it was the more Trick Daddy and the 2001 Hurricanes that everybody was kind of, on. Um, so I mean, but home is awesome. I mean, you see the stuff you see on TV, you know, um, there's no place like Florida. I mean, now granted, some of it is a little bit of exaggerated, when they want to show the excerpts of, high school kids training and chasing behind chickens because they're so fast and all of that stuff. I mean, we are dominant in football, don't get me wrong, but um, that's what we're known for. That's what we do. But I mean, you can't beat the weather, and it's nothing like being from South Florida. South Florida and North Florida might as well be two completely different states because we are not the same type of people.
Totally get it. I totally get it. Now, what was it like just for you personally growing up in South Florida?
I had a blast. I mean, I have no complaints on my childhood. I grew up in a two-parent household, through high school. My parents didn't split until I was in high school, but my dad was still very active in my life. Um, I went to Boyd Anderson High School in Broward County in Fort Lauderdale. I was a cheerleader. All 4 years I was in high school. I couldn't have asked for a better education. I graduated high school, magna cum laude. I graduated with my diploma, the International Baccalaureate diploma. So I was able to start college as a sophomore, which is how I graduated college with my undergraduate degree in 3 years. Um, there can be a lot of distractions growing up in South Florida just because, you got South Beach, you got Fort Lauderdale Beach, you know, it's a tourist attraction, growing up down there. But it's amazing. You meet all different people. We have a very high Caribbean population down there. And my dad wasn't born in the United States. Very high, everybody knows, very high Cuban population, Haitian, you know, just about any of the Caribbean islands that you can think of, there's probably a population or a sector of that in South Florida. And it just makes it just makes for growing up in a very diverse area. You learn a lot about a lot of different cultures, and you learn to be more accepting of people that are different from you. So I don't have any complaints.
I hear you there. Now, I did get to go to Miami. My first time going to Miami, which it shocks a lot of people. But last year was my first time going to Miami.
I see.
And I'm dead serious. Every time I've wanted to go, something came up or something happened. But anyway, went there for our anniversary, me and my wife's anniversary. The one thing I did not know about Miami is like people were telling me, oh yeah, there's like the little secret clubs, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, are you serious? So I wanted to check this out because I'm for those that don't know me, I like the little the little secret rooms. Batman, you got the little statue, the staircase move. I like those type of things.
Yeah, and like the little clubs that you open, the little slide there. It's only open if we only see your eyes. That's
yes. I love that stuff. And if I ever get enough money, I would love to build a house that had those different things in them. But I was very intrigued by this. I was like, I gotta go see this. I mean, I was like, they're telling me about this. I'm like, hold on, I gotta see where this entrance is. So we actually paid, went to it, little entrance. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of nice. You would never think this is here. Okay. Okay. So I'm, now I'm kind of like wanting to go back.
That's off your bucket list.
What's that?
It's off your bucket list now. It's done.
Well, kind of, sort of. Now I got to get the house so I can actually create that. But
there we go.
That's another thing for another day. But I got to ask you, of course, growing up, Miami area, you end up going to college at Florida State. How did that happen?
I did. Well, like I said, my sisters were more of the fans kind of growing up. I mean, my mom, bless her heart, and anybody who's ever followed me on social media knows how much I love my mom, how close we are and how big of a football fan she is. And I think that's where we kind of got our love for football from her. My mom attended Bethune-Cookman College, so she is a Wildcat, or Bethune-Cookman University, as it is called now. But when she relocated to South Florida, she adopted all things South Florida. She became a huge Dolphin fan, a big Canes fan. So my two older sisters kind of adopted that from her. While I was coming up, I spent a lot of time with my male cousins, and he was a big University of Michigan football fan, but he was also a really big Peter Warwick fan. And so you're talking about, 98, 99 Florida State, and we were pretty much dominant. We went on, won national championship, all that good stuff. And so that kind of started my love of things and programs other than the University of Miami. So that never played a role in where I was going to go to school. I did apply to all the Florida schools only because my grades were so good, and my counselors at high school always suggested, you always want to have a backup plan. You always apply. So I did apply to I did get into but I chose to go to Florida State, not only because I was a fan of, at that time, the football program, but also because of what I wanted to do. The College of Human Sciences offered a lot of different programs that I could correlate into ultimately being a physical therapist with my doctoral degree later down the line. It was also about 6.5, 7-hour drive from Fort Lauderdale. So it wasn't like my parents could just pop up on me any second like they could if I was in Coral Gables. So that made it a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. I was roughly about 3 hours away from home. I didn't leave the state of Tennessee, but that my parents really didn't pop up on me very much either, which I definitely enjoyed that they didn't do that. But
yeah, and I mean that kind of goes back to that kind of goes back to, North Florida and South Florida. It's a huge state, so I went to the top from the bottom. It was a culture shock because I hadn't been up there before I went to college. Actually, the first day that I'd ever been to Tallahassee was my day of orientation. So it was a big culture shock.
I bet. Well, we're going to get into a little bit more about Florida State and some other things when we come back from this commercial break. You're watching Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. Whether it's local or long distance, Milligan Logistics has you covered. Milligan Logistics was established in 2020 with over a combined 15 years of experience in trucking, hauling, and logistics, along with over 50 years collectively of project management experience. Again, whether it's near or far, Milligan Logistics has you covered with quality service, efficiency while taking pleasure in exceeding clients' expectations. Need goods moved short or long distance? Milligan Logistics has you covered. Just reach out to them at 615-354-2618. That's 615-354-2618. Or you can send them an email at milliganlogistics@gmail.com. Again, that's milliganlogistics@gmail.com. All right, and we're back. Now, when we left off, I was trying to figure out how you went from Miami to Florida State, but hey, you kind of broke it down for me, so I understand more now. I was thinking about that one too before we got on the show. I was like, how did? But but hey, you broke it down perfectly. But what I didn't ask you about is the medical field. Mm-hmm. When did that interest kind of start kicking off for you?
My mom worked at the same Trauma One hospital down in South Florida my whole childhood. I think she ended up, when she retired from Broward General, I think she had done maybe like 30 years. She was like in charge of the lab, the main lab in the entire hospital. So that was her thing. My sister, my oldest sister, she followed my mom and attended Bethune-Cookman College, and she ended up being a registered nurse. I'm the baby by quite a lot. She's actually 14 years older than me. So I actually kind of watched her kind of go through that process. So I kind of knew that being in some type of healthcare setting was something that I wanted to do because I did enjoy helping people. But I also knew that just my personality type, I wasn't made to be in the hospital. Like I couldn't do a 12-hour shift in the hospital. I don't like hospitals. They're freezing cold. They're depressing. And I just knew that that's not where I wanted to spend my work days. So I was kind of caught in between, okay, I want to be in healthcare. I want to help people, but I don't want to work in a hospital. But I do kind of want to see the cause and effect relationship on how I could benefit or help someone who's in need. So that's kind of what led me to what I do now.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned being a sports fan, and you also mentioned, of course, obviously, the medicine. So being a sports fan, how do you kind of watch the games and not think about the potential injuries while you're watching the game?
Well, I mean, you'd never get through a game if you did that. I think I can watch it just from a fan standpoint because I've always been a fan, like my whole life, as far as I can remember. And I've only been working or doing this for the last third of my life. So maybe the last 12 years, right? So I think it's kind of cool in the respect that, you hear coaches or people who played sports or people who've been a part of the game talking about athletes being hurt versus athletes being injured. And so, if you're hurt, everybody gets hurt because it's physical, right? You're talking about football, you're talking about basketball, you're talking about baseball. A lot of people play hurt, but not everybody can play injured. When you're injured, you need to come off the field, you need to come off the court, you need to come out of the field to play. So sometimes I might find myself watching a game and be like, he's hurt, but he's going to find a way to go back in, right? Or then, you can look at a situation like, DeMar Hamlin, and you're like, no, he's injured, something's wrong, you know? So there is sometimes, if it's really, really bad, or, you see a concussion, or you see the way somebody falls, it's really easy to kind of go into work mode and be like, oh, that might be torn. He's going to be out. Or, oh, that sucks because, he was, they franchise tagged him, now this happened. So now he's not going to get his money, So thoughts like that kind of come into your head, but it doesn't take away from, the enjoyability of the game.
Gotcha. Okay. So you go to Florida State, like you mentioned, you graduated in 3 years, which, that's amazing. Even with, the information you gave me about, starting, college courses as a sophomore, correct? High school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So even with that, it's still amazing. I mean, I took 4.5. So there you go. So you move on next to move to Atlanta at Emory School of Medicine.
Yeah.
Now, how did you come to picking that school?
So really, when I was coming out of Florida State, because I did graduate Florida State in August 2006, and the Emory program works on at that point it worked on a 9-semester kind of rolling calendar, which always started in the summer. So I graduated August 2006. So the earliest I can enroll would be the next June 2007. Before I left Tallahassee, I had made a decision. Like I said, me and my siblings are very close, and my middle sister was living in Atlanta at the time, which is very close in proximity to Tallahassee. So a lot of times during my tenure in Tallahassee, I would drive up to Atlanta versus going all the way home to Fort Lauderdale to visit my sister, or if I wanted to get away to see family, etc., I would go there. So I'd been to Atlanta quite a lot, so I was kind of versed with the area somewhat. And I knew Emory had the program that I wanted to do. But then I also applied to UM because realistically, I hadn't lived back home full time since I was 17 years old. So, fast forward now, I'm 21. I'm like, oh, it wouldn't be bad to live back home, so I applied to Miami as well. Your doctoral degree, as far as your allegiance to your school, your love for your school, doesn't really matter as much as your undergraduate. So, it wouldn't have been too bad if I was, had a doctorate from Miami, because I had already got my degree from Florida State. So once my acceptance letters came in, I kind of weighed my options, and then I made the decision that I was going to move to Atlanta. And that's how I ended up here. And that's when I accepted my invitation to come to Emory School of Medicine.
All right. You said it was kind of a rolling calendar. How was that, how tough was that kind of going through that kind of different type of schedule with Emory School of Medicine?
Well, I mean, Emory's hard.
Of course. I mean, medical school,
I mean, it's hard. One thing about the curriculum at Emory is they always tell you, it's hard. If you can go somewhere and have your fun in undergrad, go ahead and do it, because you're not going to really have a lot of time to do much fun stuff once you get to Emory. But the blessing is when you come out on the other side of it, people see that Emory logo, not just in the Southeast, but anywhere in the country, and they know that you know your stuff. They know you've been educated well. They know that, you can be vouched for, because it's very, very rigorous. And like I said, it's 9 straight semesters, rolling calendar, 3 years, plus you have your 9 months of clinical internships, and you have your doctoral presentation at the end. So it is very hard. And then add the fact that when I started in June 2007, I was 8 months pregnant. So I actually gave birth to my son the day after I took my anatomy and physiology final. And my anatomy and physiology teacher actually texted me when I was at Emory Labor and Delivery and told me that I got an A in the class, which was pretty awesome. So, so
Wow.
it had its challenges. It was a good time in my life though, because I did something that I didn't think I would be able to do. I mean, not from a educational standpoint, because I've always been good in school. That's always been my strong point. But just kind of mentally and emotionally being a new parent, they did let my son walk down the aisle with me to get my diploma when I graduated. I graduated in May 2010, and he turned 3 in July. So that was pretty awesome. So we do have that memory together.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I can only imagine that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that type of memory when I graduated just regular college. I mean, I just remember my uncle yelling out because I live in Nashville and it's close in proximity to Antioch. When Antioch, basically, if you live in the southeast Nashville and you're going towards Atlanta, it's Nashville, and then you go a couple streets over and you're in Antioch.
Yeah.
So my uncle is out there yelling, "Lower Antioch in the house." I'm like, oh my god, oh
He's
my
proud.
god, no,
He's proud.
no. He was proud, but he need to keep that to himself. I'm like, nah, nah. But nah, I love you, Uncle Herman. I love you, Uncle Herman. I'm just joking. But but as far as what I would mention to you or ask you, you deal with physical therapy, different things, correct? I just want to make sure I'm
Yeah.
in the right lane.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, now you've done a few things, maybe worked a few places, done a few things on your own. Am I right there?
Hmm.
Okay. So with that being said, what advice would you kind of give anyone that's kind of looking into get into the physical therapy field, whether it be on their own or through an actual company to work for?
I guess you have to kind of figure out in what capacity you actually want to work, or what setting I should say. Um, the thing about physical therapy is it's so broad as far as the type of patient that you can see, the type of setting that you can see them in, and then also the type of treatment that you can do with them. Here in Atlanta, we have the Shepherd Center, where they specialize in spinal cord injuries and nervous system injuries. Um, so it's a world renowned center. I mean, there's people that um, actually retrain paraplegics, how to live life as far as therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists. Um, they also have an area of the Shepherd Center where they reformat people's cars so that paraplegics can drive. So that place in itself, like I said, the Shepherd Center is world renowned, and a lot of people a lot of therapists are spine therapists who are more into the neuro side of things, helping people post stroke, helping people post spinal cord injury, you know, getting them back walking, just basic activities of life, that's an excellent place to intern. Um, and then just in general, if that's what you're into, you have the skilled nursing facility setting, you have the nursing home, facility setting. Then you have the home health setting, the hospice, where you can actually go to people's houses and treat them there. And then you have the physical therapy setting that most people um, are more well versed in, and that's your outpatient setting, where you have your ambulatory population, your people who are sometimes, well, most of the time, more motivated to get back to something. So either they've been um, hurt in a sport, or they've been hurt in an accident. So they're trying to either return to work, or they're trying to return back to the field, or, you know, you have that. You also have people who are preparing for surgery. Uh, you have people who just kind of want to stay in shape, stay in a preventative state. A lot of insurances are going towards paying for preventative medicine versus paying a lot for your healthcare on the back end. Um, if you talk to anybody that works for Humana, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, you know, they'll tell you, okay, we tell employers, hey, make sure your employees do these yearly screenings every year to make sure that they know what their blood work is. Make sure that they're able to document or tell you some type of moderate exercise that they're doing 3 to 5 days out the week, because the American Red Cross says, or American Heart Association, excuse me, says that that's going to decrease your rate or your chance for a heart attack, by the time you're 50. So a lot of these things, I would encourage anybody who's looking into physical therapy kind of know what setting you're most interested in, and then you can kind of tailor your career for that. For me, I've always liked the outpatient setting because, like I said, I like the more ambulatory population. Um, you know, those patients are typically more motivated, so they're going to do what you ask them to do. If I tell you that I need you to um, do this exercise, that exercise at home, and master it by the time you come to therapy, because in 4 weeks you want to be able to go back to practice, I know that I can count on them to do it versus my more sedentary elderly lady who just wants to watch The Price is Right. She's not really going to do her exercise like I want her to.
Yeah, she's gonna do exercise. It's gonna be that remote, watching
Mm-hmm.
Drew Carey. That's gonna
And
be the
that's okay.
exercise.
That's okay.
Oh goodness. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on, but of course it wouldn't be my show unless we have a game. 5 questions, 2 answers, 1 choice.
So wait,
Are you ready?
explain the game again. You just blew through the rules super fast.
It's 5 questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 answers, and you got to make 1 choice.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I think I'm ready.
You got to cheer for one team, Florida or Miami.
Miami.
All right. You got 1 coach, 1 game. Nick Saban or Bobby Bowden?
Bobby. That wasn't
All
fair.
right. Well, hey, I just come up with them, and hey. You got to cheer for one team, the Cowboys or the Commanders.
Commanders.
All right. You've got a week off. Staycation or island getaway?
I'm going to the island.
All right. All right. Now you mentioned you do have a child.
Mm-hmm.
As a mom, would you rather be a track mom or a football mom? Which one do you favor more?
Football mom, 100% through and through.
All right. Hopefully that wasn't too tough for you. 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice.
That was fun.
All right. Well, I thank you for coming on. If you can, I guess tell anyone where they can, find either the information that you have out there, or can reach out to you if they have any kind of medical or physical therapy questions, perhaps.
I have the same Twitter handle as I have Instagram handle. It's Erin, my first name, ERIN, V, my middle initial, as in Victoria, 1985. That's on both Twitter and Instagram. I do have my own clinic that I do run with a classmate from Florida State. We are located in Midtown Atlanta. Our website is www.peachrehab.com. If you want to know why he was asking about certain particular teams, I am an Eagles fan. So, that was the lesser of 2 evils for him to ask between the Cowboys and the Commanders, but I'll never cheer for the
Cowboys. Well, you knew I had done my homework, so I always pay attention.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you for watching, listening, whatever you're tuning in from, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, let's see, Google Podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube. Hello, everybody. But, thank you all for tuning in. Also, of course, wearing the shirt today, Black Blood Voices. Definitely a podcast that I like listening to. They very interesting guests, very good topics. Have one coming up. They have a series going on this year. Love Your Black Woman. Definitely check that out, because you definitely gotta love your black woman. So, and definitely wanted to shout them out on the show. Of course, wearing the shirt as well. Thank you all for tuning in. We're out. Peace.
Bye.